Welcome back. We're going to talk about how to train a beginner level 65-year-old female that is completely untrained. This is going to be a full body program. There may be a time where you have to shorten it, where we're only doing 2 sets instead of the full 3 sets. We might even just do 2 CCAs, depending on how she's feeling. We're also going to be thinking about lower reps as well as sets. Not the 12 to 15. She might get a little bit exhausted if she's very untrained and she's a complete beginner. There's a few things that we need to be aware of. We need to be cautious of the eccentric portion to where the elderly person doesn't get too much DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. With this client, we need to emphasize protein intake. As you get older, you probably don't eat as much. And if you're going to be working out, we need to make sure that they're getting plenty of protein because muscle protein synthesis sensitivity decreases as we age. So we need to have more protein. A couple other things that we're going to think of. And as we age, we're going to lose power, which is dynopenia. So we're losing muscle, we're losing power, and if we're not eating enough protein, it's going to cause problems later on down the road. So remember to let your clients know it's important to eat more protein if they are a senior citizen. Of course, anybody needs to eat a little bit more protein if they're working out, right? Rebuild our muscles. So the first core movement pattern we're going to do is a squat for this person. Now we can do a TRX squat, we can do a body weight squat, just depends on how comfortable this person feels. We want to make sure that the area is safe and they feel comfortable with what they're doing. They understand the exercise and we're communicating well with them. The next exercise we're going to do is a horizontal push. I like to do a banded press. I have these cool little bands. They come in lighter weights. We can tie them to a lot of different things. Very versatile. We can use them seated, standing. We can use them unilateral. We can use them bilateral. Really versatile tool. Great handles, very sturdy, and they come in 3 or 4 different weights. And this is one of the easiest ones that I use for some of my senior citizen clients. Banded press. So our next accessory is going to be a seated Pallof press. With a senior citizen, it's nice to get that rotational core moving. Sometimes they're just sitting, moving in that sagittal plane. So seated Pallof press. With a seated Pallof press, we've got a nice stable base. We're not standing up, twisting too much at our lumbar spine, and we're not having to have them recruit a lot of their lower body. Remember, this is a beginner. This is not an intermediate or advanced person where we can stand them up and move them. Of course, if this person is in the seated Pallof press and they're like, bro, this is way too easy, we can make adjustments. We can be like, okay, we're warming up. Want to see how that felt with you. Want to keep you safe. Stand up. Or we could try a little bit of a thicker band with them. Next core movement pattern is going to be a step up. With this, we don't have to think of them stepping up on a big box. We don't need a 24-inch box. We could just use, depending upon their abilities, a bumper plate. 25-pound bumper plate. I've used this with a senior citizen before, and it gave them a workout. And then we can also stack this on top of it if that was too easy. But usually I'll start somebody off with 2 plates and maybe a 25 on top if they're, depending upon their skill set when they first come in and how comfortable they are in the gym. Next exercise is going to be a banded row right here. What I'm going to do is I usually sit them down to start the banded row. If they feel comfortable, then I'll have them step not bilaterally, but unilaterally back. So kind of a staggered stance so they can lean back slightly and pull. One of the reasons I start them in the seated position is I don't want them to pull back, lose their balance, and fly forward like a slingshot. That's a bad day for both of you. And that's going to be the banded row. This next accessory is going to be marches. As we get older, it's harder to balance on one leg. This is a really good exercise. If you have a grandpa or grandma, or some older individuals, a lot of them have cats, dogs, bunnies, lizards, reptiles running around their house. With marches, I sometimes have them just march in place. Sometimes I'll give them weight in the contralateral hand. I will have them balance on one foot, hold it for 1 to 2 seconds, switch to the other side, back and forth. Next core movement pattern is going to be the floor bridge. This one's really good for our older clients to kind of understand how the hinge works, especially if they're a beginner. 2 feet up, 1 on the way down. Remember, we're stronger eccentrically than we are concentrically. So we can push 2 on the way up, take a foot up, and then lower it down. But of course, we want to start with a bilateral stance and just do a regular bridge. Now, what you could do to get fancy is kind of put a little bit of pressure on the outsides of their legs, see how that feels, where they're having to resist against some abduction. So the next exercise is going to be a half kneeling press. All the rest of these are going to be on the ground. That way, they're not completely going up and down, up and down, up and down. That's going to exhaust them. them. If you've ever trained a beginner older client, getting up and down off the ground is a real challenge. Of course, that's extremely important for them to do as they age. We want to make sure that we're doing all of this stuff standing up. All of these are going to be on the ground. So we're going to have them in the half kneeling position, pressing up. Now we could do that with a band. We could do that with a dumbbell 5. We can do it with a 2.5 pound little plate, as long as they are staying in the scapular plane, keeping the core engaged and pressing up. And the reason I would probably do a half kneeling press is because if they did a standing press, a lot of times if we're bilateral or even staggered stance, a lot of people tend to get into the lumbar spine. Now, is it the end of the world? Probably not for you or for me, but for somebody that's 65 and a beginner, it could be an issue. The next exercise we're going to do is the RKC plank. This is a really good one that I like to start my older clients off with, or even beginner people that are first getting interested in the gym. When we do a regular plank on our hands or our elbows, I notice a lot of people tend to bend in the middle. Now that causes a lot of discomfort on their lumbar spine. By doing the RKC plank that you're going to see in the video, we can put our elbows down, we can drop our knees at a further distance, and then drive our elbows as hard as we can to our knees and our knees as hard as we can to our elbows, and crunch that core as we're planking. Fairly difficult exercise, but it's great for our older clients. It takes the stress off the lumbar spine, really gets your core engaged. And as a trainer, you can get on the side to side and kind of push and nudge them, kind of get engaged with those clients. For all these exercises, we're going to stay around 2 to 3 sets and 8 to 10 reps. Of course, as the trainer, you're going to be able to tell how your client's feeling throughout the entire program, and you can make the decision whether to go up or down on either of these. Remember the 2 points that we talked about. Be careful on your eccentrics. Too much eccentrics is going to cause DOMs for them, which as an untrained senior, that's going to be a pain in the butt. And remember to talk to them about muscle protein synthesis. As we age, that declines. Remember to emphasize protein consumption. Super important for your clients to make sure they're getting enough protein, enough rest for growth to meet their goals so they can increase their power, strength, and live a lot longer and a happier life. Thanks for showing up. See you on the next program.